Welcome to Happy Hour. We sit down with the folks who help make our reads happen, shoot the shit, see what happens. I usually drink something. Today I am drinking a spiked coffee because why not? It's a Thursday. Is yours spiked, Tiffany?
Yes.
Yes. Everybody knows that it is actually spiked. With me today is the delightful Tiffany Shepis.
What's up? I am so happy to do this.
Well,
we never get to talk without a bunch of other people interrupting us.
I know.
How
I know.
rude.
I mean, who even likes those scripts going wild reads anyway?
Nobody.
Nobody.
I mean, I do. I have the best time. The last Halloween 3 one was so much fun.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like, I mean, I know this isn't, I'm sorry if I'm just like hijacking your interview here.
Hijack away.
But like, it was so much fun because the script was so weird and not at all like the movie, which is also so weird. And then like, you know that things don't age well, like in general, but that one was like, what the, like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, my dad just died. I'm broken up. Let's have sex. Like, it's just so weird.
It's funny. I thought of that script last night. Last night we read a new script that's a sequel to Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. That was written by the guy who plays Caldwell in that film, you know, Garbage Day.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he joined us for the read and read it, and it was his script, and it had that like Halloween 3 80s vibe to it, where like characters are behaving in ways and saying things that they would never in a million years say or do in 2020.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's all over the place with all types of movies. But like, I feel like the Halloween 3 one, and then like, even if you go back, like in the script, it's talking about like all the like the Irish stuff, but like even when you watch it, you're like, sometimes the accents were there and sometimes they kind of weren't. And then like the characters, like I remember like when you and I were talking about like who could be involved in it, and I was like, oh yeah, send it to so-and-so and see if they're into it. And I was like, oh, they're gonna think we're giving them like no lines, but like, because from the movie that character didn't exist, but in the script these were like lead parts. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't understand it. So yeah, what you guys do with scripts is fucking weird and it's awesome.
Well, thank you. I'm going to ask you about some random things that appeal to me, which normally is either delightful or confusing to some people because I talk about things that other people don't, I guess. Like when I talk to Amanda Wiss about Shakma, which evidently she doesn't get to talk about Shakma very much. So I think the first film I saw you in was Scarecrow.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would have been me and my buddy Bert Payne. We lived in Birmingham, Alabama. And we used to have a running joke because
I've been to Birmingham. I shot a movie in Birmingham.
I'm going to talk to you about that movie in Birmingham because a friend of mine directed it and we were all making movies there at the same time. So I remember that one very well. But we used to have this running thing where we enjoyed Scarecrow so much. We enjoyed you and Scarecrow so much. We would watch a movie and then one of us would just turn to the other and say, you know what this movie needs? What? Tiffany Shepis. So
yes,
that's right. And so Scarecrow was the first one, but I know before that you were really involved with like the trauma folks, right? Or the trauma folks.
Well, so I made, my first movie for Trauma, which was TROMEO and Juliet, and then kind of like traveled around with them and did like all the conventions and like went to Cannes. And so people, I was like the trauma girl because it was like, that was at the time when they were always on the E channel and Wild on the Riviera. But ironically, people were like, man, she's been in so many trauma movies, but I had actually at that time only been in one. And then I hosted their show, Edge TV, which was for Channel 4 in the UK. So yeah, so I mean, like I'd been like in and around with trauma forever and ever, but the Scarecrow, was directed by a buddy of mine, Emmanuel Etier, and I think we were making it for the asylum. And like, I remember like I was brought in as the lead and like asked to help cast, which was funny. Cause I remember like much later, somebody like, wait, the high school boy seemed much older than high school. But I thought he was so good that I was like, no, but you have to use him. Like, It doesn't matter that he looks older. I thought that movie was so cool. Like it was like, a sci-fi original, I think when it first aired, and we got to set a fucking scarecrow on fire. Like, you don't get to do those kind of pyro stunts in low budget indie movies. And I also thought it was cool that they were down to have like their lead final girl, which was me, to be different than what we had seen kind of in like the earlier 90s and 80s stuff, which was generally like the buxom blonde, you know, or you know, the rather not buxom, like, but the sweet blonde girl next door. Like, I was like a bit edgier, and I was like, all right, this is kind of cool. And so I, like you and Billy, love the Scarecrow.
Well, I'm just I think I'm terrified by scarecrows in general.
Wait, not Billy. Wait, that's you. Who's your friend? Bert. I love Bert.
Yes. Scarecrows in movies scare me to death because I think it's just horrifying, the idea of like that coming to life and coming after you. There's that weird movie, I think it's called Scarecrows, with like the army people who like are stealing the money and they drop down into the farmhouse and all these weird scarecrows come. Just traumatizing. Just absolutely. That
sounds terrifying. But I think scarecrows are terrifying because, I mean, who the hell like wants to hang out in a cornfield? Like, they're creepy. Like, that's why the people make mazes out of them, because they're friggin' scary. And like, I think the whole idea of like abandoned large farmlands where people can't hear you scream are terrifying.
Yeah,
so
I
get it.
Well, there's a lot of farmland in Birmingham, Alabama, which I'm going to come back around to. I'm assuming that we're both talking about Homesick.
No,
we're not.
I'm just kidding. Yes.
I was like, how many movies have you shot in Birmingham? That's awesome.
104. No, yes, we are talking about Homesick. Which, you know, man, like everyone on that movie, like grew up and did giant things.
Yeah.
Yeah, Homesick, made by Adam Wingard and Evan Katz. And I remember kind of specifically them calling me about the project, and they were like, look, we're horror fans, but like, we don't have a lot of money, but we promise this will be really cool. And we're talking to Bill Moseley and blah, blah, blah. And they were just like young and weird. And they were so excited. I mean, I was young too, but they were, I think, a little bit younger. And they were so excited that I was like, absolutely, hell yeah, I'll be there. And I remember getting there, and a lot of the scenes we shot in like their families' homes, and like mom was cooking dinner for the cast and crew. Like, I remember at one point I bought pizzas for everybody because like the sandwiches were kind of gross. Yeah. And that's what kind of like home, Birmingham movie making was. But that movie ended up being really cool and weird. And it was Bill Moseley and Tom Tolles and Jeff Dillingham, and it was wild.
It's a fun movie. And that was, I think that was Adam's first movie. I think Pop Skull was after that.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was back when he was just this, weird filmmaker guy running around the streets of Birmingham. And of course, now he's directing King Kong versus Godzilla.
I know.
And, it's insane.
I know. I did send that email like, I really could be like the lady who goes, Godzilla, and then gets smashed. Or, the lady who's just like, oh no. Or the lady who's like dragging her awful kid across the street yelling at him, and then she gets like eaten by, but no reply.
And Evan's just a sweetheart too.
Evan's cool.
Yeah,
Evan's cool. Evan, I believe, just was a producer on the second season of The Haunting of Hill House, or The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. He's doing well. He's doing well for himself.
They're all doing okay. It's because of me. It's because I was their good luck charm in that movie.
Well, that's what I like to think as well.
Yeah.
I have to ask you about this film as well, because it's I just find it to be a period of time in movies that seems so foreign to me now, which is the Sharknado craze. And I'm thinking back to a time when Sharknado was like the most popular thing in the country.
It's crazy. We were living in Arizona, and obviously, like, because of the Scarecrow, I know all those guys at the asylum, and Anthony Ferranti, who directed it, was our second unit director, I believe, on the Scarecrow. Oh, wow. So it's like the whole, as you know, like the whole indie horror world is just like one giant revolving family that, like, people are up here and then they're not, and like you kind of cross paths all the time. But I remember when it was like on the news and I was like, holy crap, like the asylum must be like, what just happened? Because like, you know, those movies, this just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And we watched it and we were like, oh my God, this is so fun. This is so, it really took me back to the days when I was just indie horror movie fangirl, like watching trauma movies when my parents were out of town on the weekend, going like, this shit is so unbelievable, but it's so fun. That when I heard they were doing part 2, I actually knew one of the lead girls. Her name was Courtney Baxter, who was like the daughter of Mark McGrath and whatever, Carrie were. And her mom and her were on the set and like they were talking to the producers, like, you know, we know Tiffany Shepis and, you know, man, you guys should have her in this. And he's like, oh, is she here? And she's like, yeah, she's in New York. I wasn't. And she called me, she's like, call them, tell them you're in New York. So I called David Lattin. I'm like, hey, I'm actually not, but I will be there. Like I'll do whatever, like put me in Sharknado too. And oddly, I get there and it was one of the coldest winters in Manhattan. And I was supposed to be like the wife of one of their celebrity stunt people that they were casting, who owned a yacht that was going to save everybody from the Statue of Liberty. And when I got there that day, they were like, we have bad news. The guy who owns the yacht won't let us put it in the water because it's so cold. So that scene is cut. And I'm like, Anthony, like, I'm here. Like, what do you mean that scene is cut? And he's like, well, just write yourself in. You're now Peppa from Salt and Peppa's best friend. So go add some lines. And I was like, okay, I'm on this. But that's in a way, I mean, one, how like those kind of movies work where it's just so like instantaneously shit changes and you have to be prepared to do whatever and changes and things, but also the trust that the kind of genre has within each other, that I wasn't gonna write. I mean, even though the movie is like absurd and ridiculous, I wasn't gonna write things in that didn't make sense.
Sure.
You know, so it was like, I'm just the best friend of this lady, you know, and we're sightseeing at the Statue of Liberty. And then, oh shit, you know, sharks.
Oh shit, sharks.
I think my line was something like that. Like, oh, it was, since when are there sharks in Manhattan? Like that. Like that. Of course, I added in the line that I really thought was going to be the commercial line, which it was.
That's right. That's a poster line too. Since when are there sharks in Manhattan?
Yeah.
So you mentioned briefly the stuff what kind of horror did you watch? Like, what kind of stuff did you get into as a kid, horror wise?
A lot of trauma stuff, a lot of Corman stuff, a lot of Charlie Band things, and like things like Trilogy of Terror were really big in our house. Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama. You know, pretty much probably the same type of things you were into, you know, Motel Hell was one of our favorites, as well as a weird movie called Mountaintop Motel Massacre, which nobody really I knew ever heard of.
I don't know that either.
It's amazing. You have to watch it.
Well, I'm making
it. Where I grew up in New York, where I was born, is a town called New Rochelle, and New Rochelle was home of a little tiny movie called Scream for Help. And Scream for Help is basically like The Stepfather, but you need to find it. Have you seen it?
I've heard of it. I've not seen it.
You need to find it and watch it and look at the credits of all the people that worked on it that are so famous. And it's the weirdest movie, again, with lines. Actually, we should do a Scripts Gone Wild read of it because it's so weird. Like, there's actually a line where she's like, I just didn't want to do it with you. I wanted to do it with you just so I could lose my virginity. I would have done it with anyone, even a garbage man. And you're like, what? Like,
garbage man.
Even a garbage man. It's so amazing. So we should do it.
I just wrote that down. I'm always looking for fun scripts for us.
And I believe Tom Holland wrote it. So maybe we get Tom Holland.
We can get him back. He was on for our Friday night read. We can maybe get him back on.
I think he hates it, but that'd be great.
We'll get that Tom Holland to jump in, and we'll try to get the young Tom Holland to be in it.
There you go.
There we go. We'll bridge together the Tom Hollands.
I like it.
Well, so you watched Trauma, you watched Full Moon stuff when you were younger, which is exactly what I watched as a kid too. I kind of gravitated towards the lower budget horror stuff because I was just always impressed to see what in the hell they could do. I I'm curious, flash forward to now, because like right now, like Adam Green to me makes like films that remind me of those types of films.
Yeah.
They're very like, you know, to me, they're very like DIY, by the seat of your pants, just get it done. And I know you were in Victor Crowley, which I think is the fourth Hatchet film. And,
it is.
And you've worked with Joe too, right? Haven't you?
Lynch?
Yeah.
Well, I did a little cameo for him in Mayhem.
Okay.
And then he directed some Troma movie that I did a cameo for too, which I can't remember. I think it was Toxic Avenger 4 or Terra Firma. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I think either he was directing or he was directing Second Unit. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about working with Adam and like that on-set environment. I mean, is that I mean, for starter, I mean, I don't know for sure because I'm just watching them, but they certainly seem like they're a lot of goddamn fun.
Oh yeah, I mean they're a blast. But with every bit of fun that those kind of movies are, they're also, you're working. You know, you're making a movie, so it's, you know, they're great because like the stuff you're watching is often like ridiculous and crazy and weird, and you know, when you have giant type monster type people, that's fun, but it's still tough, and they're late nights and you're shooting really fast, so there's not a whole lot of time for like crazy camaraderie, like, but
most of the time in the water.
I did but I mean, certainly because so many of us are such good friends, there's that. And so you're going to work with people you like, which like how often does that happen, you know? And then on that one, like we didn't know Brian Quinn, so he was kind of like our new one to the group, so he sufficiently got hazed by all of us. Like I would like steal things from his, you know, trailer every day, and like Perry Shen was the only nice one because he's like just actually genuinely nice. Boring. But he like I think brought everybody candy and like gifts on the first day, and like of course we stole all the Quins and like acted like he was the only one that didn't get one, and like he was the outsider. Hindsight, probably very childish, but then very funny.
Would you say that they were practical jokes?
Ha ha! Ha! But now we actually can't even say Brian Quinn, Impractical Jokers star. We're going to say Brian Quinn, Scripts Gone Wild alum.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And that's always better, I think, for people's careers.
Absolutely.
What I loved about Victor Crowley was that nobody knew it was even existed. I remember seeing, you know, the whole thing about, you know, doing the Hatchet screening and then him just being like, oh, by the way, we shot this movie in secret. Here you go.
I know. I was really mad too, because I was out of the country at the time. My husband was shooting in Prague. And so I had taken the kids for like the end of their season to like visit, and took, you know, like a little mini vacation. And all year long, I was like, Adam, you got to tell me when the screening is so I don't book this at the same time. Adam, you got to tell me. And then I swear to God, the day after I booked the trip, he's like, we're doing the screening. And I was like, you mother. So I missed it, but I did hear it was pretty amazing. I was a non-believer that the secret thing was going to work.
Yeah.
I was certain that people had told people, or it was going to be sort of anticlimactic, like, oh, wow, all right, so you shot a movie in secret and you're now showing it to us. But the response was the opposite. People really went crazy for it and liked it a lot.
It's funny because, you know, Wingard did the same thing with the Blair Witch movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know that I don't think it got as favorably received as Victor Crowley, frankly, but they did manage to pull off the surprise, I think, because I mean, I think a lot of people before it came out were like, is this a Blair Witch movie? Because it was just all woods. I think horror people did, like kind of, I would like us, or like the insiders of it probably did, but I would kind of guess to say the rest of the world didn't. Yeah.
Because I think, you know, when you're not like an avid horror person who sort of lives and breathes it, I don't think like the Blair Witch is that like the tip of your thought process, you know? So I mean, I'm sure it worked. I don't know.
I wish there was more of that. What I'm saying is I wish there were more surprise movies that no one knew about.
It's kind of cool. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of different.
Avoid the trailers, avoid it all. Just be like, oh, here's this movie that we shot a year ago. Enjoy. Why not?
Why not?
I'm curious. I want to get your thoughts on this because this is sort of. Have you shot anything during COVID at all, or have you been just?
I've shot 2 things during COVID, and one was in our home with our kids.
Oh.
So my husband, like right kind of couple months into lockdown, realized like, like we really tried to have routines and stuff. Cause like I read, like in order to not go crazy, you have to have like a routine every day. Like you need to wake up at the same time. And it was easy for me with the kids. Cause like I have to like make sure our little guy's on school and stuff like that. But so I was like, we're going to wake up every day and we're going to exercise as a family and we're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to do this. And then on Fridays, we're going to bake a cake. Like it's like this weird, but it did work. But after 2 months into that, you're sort of like, all right, now what? Yeah. And he was like, you know what? Like our son had made this crazy fort downstairs, and Sean kept looking at it, and it had been up for like weeks. Like it was one of those that were like, generally we would have, I mean, it was huge and elaborate and made of cardboard, and he had cutouts for all of his video games. It was cool. But generally in non-COVID times, we would have tore that shit down on day 3. And now it was like 4 weeks. It was still up because you just feel so bad that these kids have nothing. Yeah. And I guess he got this idea that was like, what would happen if mom and dad weren't here and the kids had to kind of fend for themselves? Like, what would the house look like? What would they do? And so he wrote a script, and it was a short about 2 kids having to take care of each other when mom was sick upstairs with something. Yeah. And like, you don't know what, like you don't see mom for a while. And so we made this short, and it turned out like really good. And now it's been playing festivals all over the place. And we got our friends to do some socially distanced cameos like Ken Foray and Dee Wallace and Serena Vincent and Felissa Rose, Perry Shen. So it was really cool. Our kids hated doing it, which is kind of funny because like it was all for them. And like on day 4, they absolutely hated it. And all they did was fight. But at that point I had already asked Ken to do our voiceover at the end. And he was like, absolutely, baby, whatever you want. And I was like, shit, now I can't not finish this. But like, we have this kind of amazing piece that like is actually won awards. Like the kids have won Best Actor and Actress at film festivals now.
That's amazing.
Which is wild. It got to play a drive-in here. So that was cool. And then I just, the other day, can't really tell you too much about it. Sure. We shot a pilot with me and Danielle Harris, Danielle producing, Serena Vincent, Dee Wallace, and Scout, Taylor Compton.
Wow, that's a great ensemble.
Yeah, it's really cool. Super woman empowerment, cool, crazy. But that was the first time I'd been around people that weren't our family. Yeah. But, we all COVID tested and, it was all completely COVID safe. But even that was nerve wracking because I haven't been with people outside of our home. You know what I mean? Like, like the night before I'm calling Serena, like, dude, are you sure this is okay? Like, what if somebody tested too early, or what if that, and she's like, dude, we got this. Like, we'll just stay, as much distance from each other as we can, like, but knock on wood, thank God, everything worked out. And the production was amazing, and Danielle really had it like spot on down, like as far as the safety measures were concerned and stuff. So those 2 things. I've done a bunch of voiceover stuff.
Yeah, that seems to be what everybody's doing to kind of bide their time right now, is just doing a lot of voiceover work.
Yeah, a lot of voiceover work. I got to do a really cool audiobook for this is kind of cool for Adam Girosh and Jace Anderson, who were the writer and directors of the Night of the Demons remake.
Oh yeah.
And they wrote a book called Graves Anatomy, and so I didn't write shit. I read the audiobook for that, so that was pretty cool. And a couple other really cool, just kind of weird things. Like Joe Bob's Drive-In, he had his drive-in out here, and I was the K-Shock radio host for the pre-show. So when you're listening to music, I'm this fake radio DJ who's talking about how I'm really pissed off that I'm not at like the Joe Bob Drive-In because my boss is a total dick. And then like zombies come and stuff like that. But I got so many emails from people that were like, oh my God, I didn't know you were a DJ. That's so cool. And you're like, awesome, man.
Were you channeling Adrienne Barbeau from The Fog at all?
Well, interestingly enough, that was like one of the notes was like, because originally I was like super like crazy, like, yeah, like a little more like kind of punk rock kind of crazy. And it was like, all right, a little more Adrienne Barbeau, but not as far as that. So.
Well, that's, at least there's a little bit of her in everything.
In everyone, absolutely.
Adrienne Barbeau in everything. I'm curious, so you've been on some sets, so you've been involved in the COVID protocols to some extent. I'm just really curious about how sets are handling that stuff, especially since the Tom Cruise recording dropped of him going ape shit on the crew member. Have you heard that?
I haven't, but I keep seeing it. Every time I click on one, it's like a clickbait one. So I've missed what happened,
it's just him basically for 5 minutes screaming at these crew members who broke COVID protocol. Evidently wasn't the first time that it had happened. And he's just going ballistic on them. And normally when I hear these like leaked celebrity scream fits, I'm like, I'm never siding with the celebrity, but in this case, I was like, he's kind of just looking out for his crew and kind of trying to make sure people have jobs and like.
Yeah, no, you can't. It's a disease that's killed people.
Yeah,
you can't mess around with that. And so I'm all for it. I'm not generally a Tom Cruise like fan.
Yeah,
like I mean, I'm not an anti Tom Cruise fan either, but it's like
he's just not someone that rises either way.
Yeah,
that's fair.
But if you're looking out for the safety of people, that's what you have to do. But I mean, and as far as like the set, which was the only one I was on, I mean, because with our movie that we made in our house, it was just us. We did have, actually, I forgot, Adam Girosh was a zombie, but he was outside of our home. And so everything was very safe. But like, we also, even with that, with like friends of ours who are going to be distant from us, like we had the conversation beforehand, like, look, you're going to be outside, we're going to be inside. He had to have makeup done. I was like, I'll wear 2 masks, gloves, you can wear a mask. Like, so you just gotta, I think you take every precaution that you possibly can. When we did the shoot with Danielle, there was a COVID compliance officer who checked everybody's COVID tests, took your temperature, make sure people were distanced. The only people that ever had their masks off were when we were shooting.
Yeah.
Like the actors, obviously.
Yeah.
But I also think if you're around people that generally respect each other and respect science, you're not going to have too many problems. Like we did have one person on set who was wearing a mask that was kind of like, it's not really a mask kind of thing, but he went and changed it like immediately when we were like, I don't know if that's like a real mask, dude. And he like, I think no one takes that as a personal attack as much as oh shit, you're probably right, let me go get a medical grade one, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know, I've never been on any other set, so I couldn't possibly tell you.
For sure. So we have a new administration coming in.
Yes.
Well, thank God, by the way. But
yes.
I know you are very active in and interested in gun control and gun reform for personal reasons. Sure. And I'm curious, what the hell is it going to take to pass any kind of reasonable measures?
The biggest problem that we have, and I found it only since, our family has been personally impacted, and, and I don't mind talking about it. Like, for those that don't know, our daughter was shot at a school shooting last year, and she fortunately survived. Yeah. Her best friend did not, and another girl did not. And it's tragic and awful, and it's terrible that our school, Saugus High School, is still not even a name that people know, because it was considered a lesser tragedy, because so many of them are having so many losses that people don't care about. And the biggest thing that we've run into when I started kind of doing some of like the gun advocacy stuff is people assume that when you say you want safer storage, when you want, safer gun laws, that means that we're just going to try to get rid of everybody's guns, and we're coming there, with our batons to take them away. It first of all, it's somewhat impossible to do in the United States at this point. And we know it's it's something that likely will never change. Like if it didn't happen after Sandy Hook, which is a fucking tragedy that it didn't happen after Sandy Hook, then it's certainly not going to happen now. But what we do need to do is make sure that if people have a gun, they are legally responsible for it, and they're responsible for what happens with it. And you are responsible if you don't safely store it. I mean, how many children are shot and killed each year because a parent left it in his top drawer? You know, like, I don't think he meant to do that. He isn't meaning to harm his child, but it's negligent. It's negligent. And I'm tired of the dumb arguments about like, well, you know, cars kill people and why don't we ban cars? It's like, cars have another purpose. Guns have one. One purpose. That's it. To kill. Or to harm.
And it's crazy because, you know, you see all these polls and like a majority of Americans support like background checks and getting rid of like weapons of war that people should not be able to just own. You know, nobody needs to own a gun that fires that many rounds that quickly. Like, that's insane.
Absolutely. I mean, and so many avid gun collectors and owners that I know believe the same thing you're saying. They believe we need better background checks. I mean, it's stopped at higher levels than the public, which is really sad. And hopefully with this administration, we finally get to a point. What I think ends up happening is a lot of these administrations get to a point where they're close and then they're voted out.
Exactly.
And, you know, hopefully, you know, if we've been able to do things like expedite vaccines, which is amazing, we can start expediting some of these laws that change our current policies.
Well, I think what helps is that over the last few years, you've slowly seen the decline of the NRA in so many ways. And so I think that's been beneficial, or could be beneficial, if we're actually going to get something done.
100%. It's an organization with way too much money and way too much power, and it's ridiculous. You know, I mean, you listen to the sad stories about like sorry, this is boring to a lot of people, but it's not to me. But you know, you listen to like these NRA meetings that happen after these tragedies, and you're like, who are these people? It's like they're aliens. Like, you know, after Sandy Hook, they had a meeting that was like, don't worry, we're not going to let them take our guns. It's like, how do you look at yourself when you're talking about all these these poor families that lost their children? So hopefully that gets just destroyed, and we can say goodbye to the NRA at some point, which I think would be a great step in the right direction, you know, and just being held accountable for the things that we have in our homes. You know, if you want to have 20 guns, maybe you should have to have insurance on them.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. I do think what's missing right now is a lot of personal onus on people. Like right now, it's just sort of like this, it's kind of like a free for all to some extent. Like you have this power to have all of these like crazy dangerous things, but then you've got all of these sort of like not even shortcuts, but all these ways out of it if something goes wrong. And like we have to get rid of all of those ways out for people. Like if something goes wrong on your watch, you're responsible. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and we have the world's biggest problem, in my opinion, not world's biggest problem. Another huge problem with all of this is what is called a ghost gun, which was the type of gun that was used in the Saugus High School shooting. It's when somebody cannot legally get a gun because they either have had a 5150 put on them, they can't pass the background check, whatever they may be. You can go online right now, type in this, put in your credit card, and a gun kit will come to your house. It takes like novice builder stuff, and you can build a firearm. And they don't look like toys. It is an actual firearm. And that's tragic. And the majority of guns that are being recovered in this country right now are ghost guns. So it's completely untraceable. And yet it's legal.
Yeah.
The NRA, the ATF say it's legal because it's not technically a firearm.
Which is horrifying.
But it is. So, but I thank you for asking me about this, because obviously we're very passionate about it. We are not in the business to take anyone's, home protection away. It's about making it safe and making sure that things are stored properly and making sure people are held accountable if they're not.
Yeah. I've always said, like, you're allowed to do so much until it gets to the point where what you're doing is harming someone else. Like maybe not intentionally, but even if it's not intentional, if you're harming someone else, then you have to actually look at it and say, okay,
yeah,
what's this for? So I've got a couple more questions for you, but they're not as serious.
Good.
I am just curious, and this is probably a question you've been asked 100 times, but I don't really.
Yes, it's my real hair.
Well, obviously it's your real hair. Kissed by the angels. What do you think? And I'm not saying what is your favorite. What do you think is the scariest movie ever made that you've seen? Doesn't have to be your favorite.
Okay. Old and new, or older and new, Poltergeist.
I can't disagree with that.
I think it's terrifying.
It inspires pretty much everything I write in some way.
It's terrifying. And a little more modern, The Witch.
That's also a very good one.
And The Witch, interestingly enough, it just didn't sit right with me. And I remember we saw it in the theater and we came back home and it was Sean and I, and we went to bed and I was like, talk to me. And he's like, what? And I'm like, talk to me about something funny. Talk to me, tell me a story. And it's like, because I just couldn't get the imagery out of my head. And it just really shook me for some reason. And I don't know, I just think it was really, really friggin' eerie and uncomfortable. And so I think Poltergeist, because it's just scary.
Yeah.
It's just scary. And I still don't like, if like, I'm flipping through channels around Halloween and it's like on IFC, it's like, nobody's home. Do I want to watch this right now?
But what's interesting is that both of those films are about a family dealing with someone trying to take their daughter.
Huh. It's funny. I was going to make a joke, but like, I didn't actually even put two and two together on that.
We saw The Witch. They did a secret screening of it at Fantastic Fest, and we saw it there. And it was like a midnight screening, and we were, frankly, we were drunk and stoned out of our gourds already.
Sure.
And then at midnight, we watched The Witch, and it was traumatizing. And it's like you're watching something that was just made 300 years ago. It's like, It feels like they just put a camera there and filmed it then. And it's like, it has just this crazy unsettling quality to it.
Just really so well done. It's just like, and it's, what's funny is that you say that about both movies about someone taking someone's daughter, because obviously Poltergeist I saw many years before I ever had a daughter or even thought about having children, and The Witch happened many more years before our daughter was injured. So I could go, oh well, this makes sense if those became but it's just a weird coincidence that sits with me. But maybe even though with The Witch particularly, and any movie now that where I used to really be into, the bloodier and gorier, the crazier, the better. And now I'm really quite terrified by the protection type movies like Bird Box.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called, right? Bird Box.
The Sandra Bullock movie?
Yeah. Not everyone loved it. I thought it was terrifying and unsettling. And I believe it was because like woman, not necessarily their parent, but like parental figure, having to protect children is it's just so heavy in general. Like, cause I feel like women always feel that, or parents or parental figures always feel that heaviness. But like now you're in this weird, awful time. And it's just like, like if you're on your own, like it's so easy. When you have to take care of people that depend on you, it's so much worse.
How did you handle watching Hereditary?
Hereditary, interestingly enough, I didn't have the same reaction everyone else did. And the reason why, and I probably should give it another shot, because we saw it, I think it was a horror director's birthday. I think it might've been Mike Mendez's birthday. And he invited a bunch of like horror people and everyone was going to see Hereditary. And because it was sort of like when you look around and you're in a room of 200 of your horror friends and like everyone's laughing at the right parts and tense at the right parts, I feel like I didn't get the same experience other people did.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's just, I mean, obviously it's a great film, but I didn't walk out of there with the same like angst that I did with like something like The Witch.
Yeah. One last question. I always love asking this question, and you have got a lot to choose from. What is the one project you've done that you wish more people knew about or has not been discovered as well as you would like it to have been?
Just one, huh?
Well, I mean,
okay.
Break the rules.
So it's tough because like I did a movie many years ago called The Frankenstein Syndrome, which was then also, it was originally titled The Prometheus Project, and then they coined it The Frankenstein Syndrome. And it had like an okay release, but that was sort of at the time when Blockbuster was on its way out and VOD was on its way in, and the company that put it out didn't really know their model yet.
Yeah.
And I feel like I just was so proud of the work that I did in it that I was like, man, if only people saw this. Cause like every little film festival it played at, like it won every award. I won Best Actors at a bunch of them. I played a molecular biologist, which was totally different than the typical, like, I'm a bitchy, pissed off, slutty scream queen. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was just like a different thing. And I was really proud of myself and my work in it and the movie. And it didn't get that, you know, and it's still really kind of hard for people to find. But it's much older. And then like other stuff, which isn't even a horror film, a movie called Texas Cotton that I did with Troll 2's George Hardy.
Alabama's own.
Yes. Alabama's own B-movie star and dentist.
Yep.
That's a really fun little movie that I just think is really interesting and charming and weird, and it's kind of like a sort of whodunit noir.
Yeah.
And so I would, and that one is easy to find. So I
like that one a lot. I was a big fan.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just cool. It's and that also was like kind of a who's who of horror movies, even though it's not a horror film, because you got Lou Temple in it, Jason Douglas, who was on Walking Dead. Anyway, it's really cool. So I think people should watch The Frankenstein Syndrome and Texas Cotton.
Well, this makes me think that now, why have we not done a Troll 2 read and gotten George Hardy to just pipe in from...
Oh my God, we could totally do that. I will literally text George right now.
We need to do that. I feel like Troll 2 would be the best movie in the world to read.
But should we have George play his same part? I mean, he kind of has to, because he has to say you can't piss on hospitality.
Yeah, he kind of does.
Like, no one else can do that.
You kind of have to.
Oh my God, I'm totally... Hold on.
People are watching the sausage get made right now.
George Hardy. I hope he didn't know. His number's not on there, right? It was George Hardy. I will text him. What did I just last text him? I said, cool. That's what I said to George Hardy. He said, September 24th at 10 p.m. Central, it got online for a world premiere. I actually don't even know what he was talking about, which is probably why I just responded with, cool. But I will text George and we will get Troll 2. 100%. He would love I know him. He would love to do it. He'll be so happy.
We could get a hell of a cast together for that one. People love that movie.
Holy crap, we could.
And
I have to, because you and I spawned this idea together, I get my first pick of who I want to be.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We can reach out to what's his name too. I know Lucy, the guy who directed Best Worst Movie.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, I love that documentary too. Such a fun.
It's a great documentary.
Well, thank you for chatting with us and for now helping me orchestrate Troll 2.
Yes, thank you for having me. Oh, and we also got Scream for Help, so now we've got two lined up for next year.
That's right. Hey, I'm always excited to put fun stuff on the schedule. I'm gonna do a shameless plug right now as I sip from my Scripts Gone Wild mug, which you can buy at the Scripts Gone Wild merchandise store. Just go to our website, scriptsgonewild.com, and you can buy mugs, shirts, masks, totes, stickers, all sorts of fun stuff.
Woo!
Do that.
You should do it.
You can also go to patreon.com/scriptsgonewild, @scriptsgonewild across all the social media. And thank you for joining us, Tiffany Shepis.
Thanks for having me. Bye.